have the latest information on the debt ceiling deal, as well as we are going to briefly go over what is debt ceiling. Welcome back, everyone. So happy to have you back for another update. Let's go ahead and get started. After several weeks of tense negotiations, President Joe Biden and House Republicans have reached a debt ceiling agreement. Let's go ahead and get started with a brief description of what is the United States debt ceiling. In the United States, the debt ceiling or debt limit is a legislative limit on the amount of national debt that can be incurred by the U.S. Treasury, thus limiting how much money the federal government may pay by borrowing more money on the debt it already borrowed. Now, over time, the debt ceiling has been raised whenever the United States has approached the limit. By hitting the limit and failing to pay interest payments to bondholders, the United States would be in default, lowering its credit rating and increasing the cost of its debts. So that is a brief description on what is a debt ceiling. Now let's continue with the deal. The deal would suspend the borrowing limit, which is currently at 31.4 trillion for 2 years, enough to get past the next presidential election. Biden and McCarthy agreed to keep overall non-defense spending largely at current levels into next year. Then in 2025, there will be a small 1% increase in non-defense spending, and the Republicans wanted a higher amount. Now, in terms of the 80 million Biden approved for the Internal Revenue Service, this bill reduces that by 10 billion down to 70 billion funding for the Internal Revenue Service. The agreement would maintain Biden's plan to provide student loan debt relief of $20,000, which that is currently with the Supreme Court. Remember, the Republicans have challenged the approval of that student loan debt relief, and it states that they are expected to rule on that in the coming weeks. So we will keep you posted on the student loan debt controversy. Now, the deal would require borrowers to pay back their student loans. Once again, remember, those of you who have student loan debt, those payments were put on hold due to the pandemic, and this deal will reinstate those payments. Now, in terms of veterans care, the agreement would fully fund medical care for veterans at the levels included in Biden's proposed 2024 budget blueprint, including for a fund dedicated to veterans who have been exposed to toxic substances or environmental hazards. Biden sought $20.3 billion for the Toxic Exposure Fund. So that is good news for veterans care. Now, the agreement protects the environmental provisions from the Inflation Reduction Act, including clean energy funding. Even though they have reached a deal, the bill still needs to go through the Senate. It has to clear the House. The bill still needs to go through the Senate, where it is expected to take days to get a final vote, and it needs 222 votes to pass. Currently, Republicans control the House with 222 to 213 margin, and Democrats control the Senate 51-49. So there is still a hurdle for it to pass. Now,